Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the story, The Grave Robbery Night. Kwong was a poor young man deeply in love with Lan, but her mother despised him for his lack of wealth and stability. Desperate to change his fate, he devised a reckless plan. To rob the grave of Mr. Hai, a wealthy businessman recently buried with a gold ring and a valuable necklace worth a fortune. The fateful night. On a stormy night, Kwong sneaked into the graveyard, carrying a shovel, crowbar, and a large sack. The eerie wind howled through the trees, and strange sounds echoed in the darkness, making his heart race. But the thought of the treasure kept him going. After hours of digging, he finally reached the coffin and pried open the lid. A foul stench filled the air, but Kwong ignored it, his eyes fixated on the glimmering gold ring. As he reached out to grab it, a black cat suddenly pounced on his face, clawing him viciously. In that terrifying moment, he realized something far worse. The corpse of Mr. Hai was moving. Its stiff fingers twitched, and its cloudy eyes opened wide, staring straight at him. Panic-stricken, Kwong tried to flee, but as he climbed out of the grave, a bolt of lightning struck him. He let out a blood-curdling scream before collapsing, his body charred and lifeless. The curse of the cemetery Trong, a gravedigger who had secretly followed Kwong, had planned to steal the gold for himself. Seeing Kwong dead, he eagerly jumped into the grave to claim the treasure. But as soon as he touched the corpse, an ice-cold hand emerged from the water-filled grave and grabbed him. Trong thrashed desperately, screaming in terror, "Help! It's a ghost! A ghost!" His cries faded into the storm as he was dragged under. The next morning, villagers discovered Kwong's burnt body lying in Mr. Hai's grave, while Trong had drowned in the rain-filled pit. Rumours of Mr. Hai's curse spread quickly, striking fear into the hearts of the townspeople. The ghost returns. That night, Lan awoke to the sound of knocking at her door. Outside, her dog howled eerily. "Knock, knock, knock!" A familiar voice called out, "Lan, open the door for me." It was Kwong's voice. Terrified, she hesitated, but finally stepped forward and unlatched the door. The moment she opened it, she let out a blood-curdling scream. Kwong stood before her, drenched and disfigured, his skin charred from the lightning. His eyes were lifeless, pure white, and blood still dripped from the gaping wound on his head. "Come with me, Lan. I have money now." Lan backed away, shaking with fear, but Kwong lunged at her, grabbing her wrist. "No, let me go! Someone help!" Her desperate screams echoed through the night. Her parents rushed in and turned on the lights, but by then, Kwong had vanished. Lan, however, had already collapsed, trembling uncontrollably, her mind shattered by terror. A never-ending nightmare. The next morning, when Lan's parents learned that Kwong had died the previous night, her mother sobbed. No wonder she was screaming about him. She said he came back, covered in blood, calling her to leave with him. Oh my God, is his ghost haunting her? From that moment on, Lan lost her sanity. She sat motionless, murmuring incoherent words, her vacant eyes scanning the darkness as if searching for someone. That night, at the hospital, a fierce wind blew the windows open. A ghostly voice whispered in the air, "Lan, come with me. Leave this place with me." Lan shuddered as she opened her eyes. Before her stood Kwong, once more, his face twisted in a ghastly grin, his bloodied hand reaching out. A chilling laugh echoed through the night. The story ends with Lan trapped in endless madness, forever haunted by the ghost of her lost love, never able to escape the horror that consumed her.